Hola, amigos.
Everybody.
Today we're doing the show in Spanglish, which is the only version of Spanish that I know. That's all I know. Sorry. Lo siento.
Mi español es no
I was
bueno.
like, how do I say sorry for being late? Lo siento for being tardes. I'm over exaggerating my bad accent. I don't think my Spanish accent is actually all that bad because I learned French, so I know how to roll my R's.
I can't remember.
I think sorry, I was just trying to listen to your mic because we just had some mic technical difficulties, and now I'm just trying to figure out if we resolve. Like, I can hear you. I'm just trying to figure out if you're using you might be using your laptop.
It says I'm using my webcam. It won't switch to my microphone. At least I have speakers now. Okay, I'm going to go back and do this. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to talk. Hello, everyone. I keep wanting to do my Spanglish, but I realize that this is just going to go around in circles as I say things like, una bolsa, por favor. Uno más copa de vino tinto. This is Where Are All the Women? And Richard, I'm guessing it was pretty bad then. We were just trying to figure out her sound settings. I think we've gotten close to figuring them out, but here we are in any case. And we're here every Wednesday night. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That helps to support the show and the channel. Did we figure out the mic, Mary Lou?
No, I have it in
out. Clapped.
I clapped and the mic didn't make a little blip. Sorry.
Oh, got it.
I clapped because it was a sad clap.
Does your input, in your sound settings, does your input say your external mic that you're trying to use?
Yes,
do you have
that? I'm using my Yeti stereo microphone, but then when
I can hear you. So I don't know what mic you're using, but you're using a mic. It's like a bit quiet. How is everything sounding on your end, audience? Mm-hmm. Is this fun? How you guys get to be involved in all of our technical troubleshooting every other week? It's not that fun for me, so I can't imagine it's fun for you guys.
It's just gonna have to be good.
Okay, so let me remember all the things that I need to try to remember when I enter the show. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you have questions and comments, please use the super chat so that we see them and address them. You know what? My mic is really far away from my face, so you probably can't hear me all that well either. Cool. If you're watching on X, I can see your comments, but I might not be able to respond to them. And so how are we doing, Mary Lou? No, I can't hear you at all now. Yeah, your audio is totally messed up now. Now I hear nothing. It's just like a weird machine sound.
Oh no.
Wait, now I can hear you again. I don't know.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, that's good. Don't do anything.
I'm not touching anything again.
Okay. So how are you doing, first of all, Mary Lou, beyond the sound difficulties?
I'm doing good. I had my first class in my materia medical class last night. I was so nervous about all the tech, and it went great. And yeah, I'm working a lot. I've been traveling a lot, but things are good. And then I went down the Glenn Greenwald rabbit hole, and that made me kind of queasy, but mostly I'm doing good.
Okay, that's good. Everyone, just let me know if this sounds okay. I'm doing great. I'm having a very good week. I feel like together and stoked and productive. I have all these ideas. We've entered into the low season here. So the summer season here, we do the opposite of most other places in the world, where the high season is November to May, essentially. And then June through October is the low season. The weather gets kind of crazy. We have like a storm season, a hurricane season. It gets very, very, very hot and humid. You sweat constantly. And it's slow. So a lot of the businesses close. There's not much to do, which can be a little bit stressful for somebody like me who likes to do things. But I'm also like, okay, Meghan, good time for you to focus on all these things that you've been putting off forever. So I've been working on perfecting my bone broth recipe, and I was rendering tallow this week. So I'm working on making some tallow things, which I'm excited about.
Nice.
And I just saw that CNN has discovered that the word retard is back. Sorry, the R word is what they still don't even want to say the word. I guess they quoted Joe Rogan in an April episode saying the word retarded is back and it's one of the great cultural victories. And obviously, I brought the word retard and retarded back like a few years ago, probably more than that actually. Actually, one of my old best friends counseled me for calling people. I was talking about, I think I'm trying to remember specifically what it was. I think I was like talking about people who like go for runs or rollerblade around the seawall, which is this area of douchebags in Vancouver. It's like just a super like yuppie new to Vancouver pastime, and I called them retards, and she was like, retards, really? And I was like, yeah, really. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was pre-COVID, pre the cancellation by everybody else. And she like stopped being my friend over that, and I was like, you know what, I don't think I want friends who I can't say retard around. That's like not my vibe. I also was like, this is why, and I have lots of female friends that I say the word retard around too. But, I was like, this is why I have so many male friends, and this is why I don't like women that much. And I'm sorry to blanket statement women, because not all women, but like women, like a man would never, none of my male friends would ever be like, oh, really? Retard? Like, that's like a woman, like a liberal woman thing. It's a woman thing to do in general, to be oversensitive about language, I think.
I do think a lot of liberal men like to language police as well, but in general, I think that is, you find that more among women. I just hate language policing. I hate it when people jump on each other with language policing. But I have to admit that I was trained to do that in college, and I did engage in it somewhat. And I feel ashamed now that I language policed anybody.
I mean, for all I know, maybe I have at some point. I don't think I've ever been a fan of language policing, and I think I've always been pretty offensive in how I speak about things. Like, I've always had a pretty big potty mouth. Like, I swear a lot. So I'm trying to think, because I don't want to be like a hypocrite, but I know that I've suggested language, and I've said, I use the term prostituted woman instead of sex worker for these reasons, but it's not like I'm going to cancel my friend because they use the term sex worker. Or even, on a personal level with regard to the trans stuff, of course, online, I'm going to be like, he, she, and if somebody uses the wrong pronouns, I'm going to say he. But if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with a friend, I'm not going to like get angry or language police a friend when we're having a personal conversation because they want to use he to refer to a woman. My friends already know what I think. I don't need to have some big lecture with them about them. You know what I mean? That's how I feel anyway.
It's important to understand that the word retarded was supposed to be a kindness correction to people using the previous word for people who were intellectually challenged, which medically was, cretin, moron, idiot. Those became mean words. So there's a social progress to use the word retarded instead, which means slow, like you're just not caught up, you're slow. And then because any word that's used to describe something that's not socially optimal, or that is just in that category of human behavior where it's not a desirable situation that we're describing, is going to turn into a slur. We have to stop using the corrective word and now use intellectually disabled. No one even like the word retarded is not applied to people with intellectual disabilities anymore.
No.
Yeah.
I've never referred to a person with any kind of disability as retarded, not on purpose anyway. Like if I did, I didn't know that they had an individual or an invisible disability.
Retarded, call someone an idiot, but idiot used to be the bad word you weren't allowed to say, and now you were supposed to say retarded. Like this is just the way it progresses. We say the same things with people, dysfunctional people who can't hold down jobs and are living on the streets and often are addicts. No one liked calling these people vagrants, so we came up with homeless. Even the term hobo meant homeward bound. They're looking for a home, but then hobo became a slur, so we switched to vagrancy. Then vagrant became a slur. Then it was homeless. Now homeless is a slur. Now you have to say unhoused.
Housing deficient.
Housing deficient or the unhoused.
I just made that up.
Yeah, housing deficient. Yeah.
I didn't know that I almost said homo. I didn't know that homo. I also say like homo as like, or like I also say gay. I mean, speaking of which, you guys can buy my gay and retarded t-shirt at fourthwall.com. I put the link in the live chat, and it's also down below on YouTube. That's the best, I think. But I also say like, like that's gay, or like you homo, or like what else do I don't know. Those words are also good because they remind me of grade 5. Like they actually feel not very mean. They feel so like childish and silly, and they don't, like it's all words for like, yeah, lame, idiot, moron, and all those things. Like you say, probably at some point were offensive or will become offensive at some point in the future. I remember like feminists getting angry at me or other people online, like during the Facebook argument phase of feminism, overusing like, are you blind? Like, are you deaf? Like, because that was discriminatory against blind people and deaf people, as though that's not just a literal description of a thing. Like, you can't hear, you can't see.
But we can still say dumb, even though that means unable to speak. That's where that word came from, where people started become called dumb. It was, the term for someone who has mutism. Yeah, it's interesting where these words come from and trying to sterilize and sanitize the language. Yeah, and the interesting thing though is, okay, you can't say gay or homo as a slur, even though at least where I live and in Western civilization, for the most part, it's no longer uncool to be gay or homosexual. It's completely accepted. In fact, this month, it's June, they're at the top of the pecking order right now. It's actually less cool for among certain subgroups to be a young straight person. There's nothing cool about that. But yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's not like, I don't know if you can qualify those words as being a homophobic slur when it's perfectly acceptable to be gay or queer or whatever. And especially, like, it's like, I'm not homophobic. So
yeah,
that's like the problem with language policing, is it takes context out, and it takes who you are and what you mean, and what, like, it's like, you're a racist, like, you're homophobic, and it's like, but I'm not. So like, I'm saying this word, and obviously I don't mean it in a way like a homophobic or a racist or whatever it is kind of way. And you can pretend like it perpetuates discrimination, but it doesn't. Discrimination perpetuates discrimination, I think. Maybe I'm missing something in my analysis here, but
I think when I was growing up, and there still was a lot of violence against lesbian and gay people, especially in the little tiny town I grew up in, it was socially dangerous for someone to be called gay, especially if they actually were gay. And the word did have a lot of power. You're throwing something at someone. If they happened to actually be gay, throwing them at them was not just socially, but physically dangerous for them, because almost everybody I know, my generation, who grew up in a small town and who was gay was beaten up pretty badly, at least once, usually more than once. The town I grew up in, there was a lesbian couple killed on a camping trip, and the killer said he did it because they were gay. Like, that's not that long ago. We're talking about the 80s, like things were not the same. It's a completely different world in the United States now, and most of the Western world. It's completely okay to be gay, which is a good segue into the Glenn Greenwald.
I'm not ready to talk about it just yet.
Okay. All messed up.
I have a couple more things to say about retard.
Okay.
And then that annoying girl singing on the plane. I don't know if you watched that, but okay. So what I did want to say about the CNN article about the R word is that I was annoyed because obviously, like, fuck CNN. Like, obviously they're going to get everything wrong, and like, who cares what they say anyway, because they're not honest operators. But they blame the resurgence of the R word on Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and Kanye West. And I was like, that's not why the R word came back. Like, yeah, Elon totally glommed on to the return of the R word once a whole bunch of us were already saying it for a long, like, it was the end of woke, essentially. That people just got sick of the language police. And also, we were all using retard in 1990, you know what I mean? Like, it never and then I think I probably, stopped using it. And, we were using the word gay all through high school to be like, that's so gay, that's so gay. And we would say things like, that's so ghetto, and all this stuff that then became offensive to say. And I don't know, I really pushed back against stopping using all those words. I clung to that for a long time, but I probably started saying it a bit less. And then at a certain point in my distancing myself from leftism and feminism and all that was like, I really don't give a shit. I'm just going to say whatever I want, and I don't care who likes it and who doesn't. But they of course they try to frame it as a far right problem, and they blame men that they don't like for it. They just decide. They said, they quoted hang on, let me just find this quote here. They quoted Adrian Massanari, an associate professor at American University, who has studied how the far right uses tech to grow its influence. And she says, the resurgence of the R word is symptomatic of a graver problem. Like, this is so serious. The apparent death of empathy. What you're seeing now, people's masks are off. This is not just misunderstanding, but the mischaracterization and demonization of communities. The use of that kind of language is signaling a shift, a desire to sort of push the envelope. And then she goes on to say, the R word never really went away. Thank you for recognizing this, Adrienne. Many people still use the word in private, and controversial far-right influencers and some members of the former dirtbag left podcast scene alike have used it for years to rile up followers and appeal to edgy comedic styles. But most people, this is a quote from somebody else, we're comfortable with the word retreating from normal discourse after years of campaigns designed to end the use of this slur. Like, I just think they missed the whole point, because it's not like we need the word. It's just sort of like, it's funny and who cares? And yeah, we're sick of the language policing, and trying to say most people were comfortable with the departure of the word is not, it's not an accurate like painting of the picture, because it's not a big deal. Yeah. The big deal is just, we should get to say what we want and not be vilified over like a stupid schoolyard word, or any other word we want to use. Like, I remember being vilified by the left for using the term illegal immigrant in an article. Right. And I didn't even realize that I'd used it. And then I couldn't even, this is ages ago. This was the first article that I ever published at the Globe and Mail. It was in print, and it was very exciting. And then I got in trouble with my boss at rabble.ca, the place that censored me, and that I eventually resigned from. This is so many years ago, 2014, 2015, for using the term illegal immigrant in the article. That was offensive, and you weren't supposed to, because, you know, they were like asylum seekers, or what would be the other word that you're supposed to use?
Undocumented.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The phrase was no person is illegal, but certain acts are illegal, and there is a legal way to immigrate into a country, and there is an illegal way to immigrate, and yeah, there is illegal immigration.
I mean, I wasn't even engaged in those debates, so I didn't even understand what I was getting in trouble for. Like, I was so naive. I was like, what? I was like, what do you like? What? I didn't even think about the term, and then I didn't know what was wrong with it, and I didn't even know how to defend myself, because I didn't even know, like, I didn't understand what was happening. And then I guess after the fact I figured it out, but like, it was like, really, like, you're going to judge me on the basis of saying illegal immigrant? And that was sort of the start of, you know, like, all these excuses of being able to call me, I don't know, right wing, or secretly right wing, or a bigot, and so on and so forth. And that's also when I began. It was an article that I had written criticizing trigger warnings, actually, back in like 2014 or 2015 or something like that. And that's, of course, I was also beginning to write about gender identity and all that stuff. So
I'm just so tired of this, you know, this push on the left to talk about the problem that the right wing is recruiting. The right wing is recruiting. You know what is growing the right wing more than anything in the West right now is this army of humorless, you know, completely insufferable scolds who postulate that anyone who disagrees with them is a right winger, and it just makes people say, fine, if you're going to call me a right winger just for having my beliefs that men can't become women, and that I think people should be allowed to say whatever they want to say, fine, I'll be a right winger. You know, that's the side I'll be on, because I certainly don't want to align with these language policing, again, incredibly humorless, pedantic, horrible people who are telling me how to live my life and how I'm supposed to think, and constantly trying to restrict my freedom.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was like, one of the many reasons I left the left, as it were. I was like, I don't want to be around these people. I don't want to be associated with them. Why would I even want to have any conversation, or be friends with, or be engaged with, or work with people who are going to cancel me in 30 seconds because I use the wrong word that they don't like? You know, it's disgusting. Right. Like, who wants to live like that? Exactly. Like, I just want to be myself, and that's what everybody should want. And people who are going to police you, or turn on you in a minute over something so insignificant, like, are you going to spend your life walking on eggshells to please these people who are obviously not your real friends anyway, who you can't trust, who are the same people who are, you know, going to turn you into the COVID police if you have your grandma over for dinner?
Right. Or walk in the woods with your face out. Exactly. I'm done with wanting anything to do with people who align with it.
Yeah. Anyway, it was like the word retard isn't back because of Joe Rogan, CNN. I understand that you don't like Joe Rogan, but not everything is Joe Rogan's fault, despite the fact that, yes, he does like the return of the R word, but there are many of us who do as well. And I would like to be blamed, since I am solely responsible for bringing back the word retard. Before we get to the Glenn Greenwald stuff, I don't know. I mean, I think the only reason I want to talk about this story is because I hate children so much. I'm joking. I'm just trying to, you know, spread the child hate. I'm joking. I don't really hate children. It's more that I want people who have children to understand that not everybody likes their children or thinks that their children are cute. And there's this video. Did you see this video circulating? It went viral online, and it was this girl. There was like the plane was stuck. I don't know. They couldn't take off for some reason. So this girl gets up and starts talking into the announcer phone that the stewardesses use to, I don't know, announce things and teach you how to put your mask on if the plane crashes so that you can breathe. And she starts singing this Disney song in like a very, very serious way. And I was just like, yo, like what? Like, what? Your parents probably were like, yeah, go do it. Everybody will love it. And everyone on the plane, I think, was like, oh my Lord, we're already very annoyed and frustrated and tired and stressed out. And now we have to listen to this girl's performance. Did you watch this video?
No, can you show us the
Oh
clip?
no.
You
Okay.
gotta
Let
show
me
us.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna go all Simon Cowell on it. We'll see.
Oh wait. Okay. Hold on. I always struggle with my screen sharing. Okay. Share screen. Let me see. Where is this one? Okay, I got it. Sorry, guys. Okay.
No matter how hard I try.
Can you hear it?
I take
Yeah.
every trail I track, every path I make, every road leads back to the place I know where I cannot go, where I love to be. See the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me, and no one knows how far it goes. If the wind in my sail on the sea stays behind me.
Okay, that's enough, right?
Yeah, that's plenty. All right. Okay, so that's from Moana, very popular.
I've never seen the
Yeah.
movie, but I was informed by the internet that it was from Moana.
Okay, technically, she's a pretty good singer. She's got great pitch, great tone. She lacks all charisma. There's no charisma going on there. You could tell she
Cute.
really loves to sing this, and she has probably been driving her parents insane with this and singing it. She loves to sing it. She's good enough to, I mean, she could probably be a music teacher later in life. She's skilled. She's not charismatic. No, I don't think this is the right role for her.
I don't think it was about her being bad. Like, I don't think I was not like, you suck, boo. It was more like, so over serious and like, why does this kid and her parents think that this is what the plane needs? Like, this is there's a certain kind of parent who thinks that everything is about their kid. Like, it's the same parents who think that your dog, like their kid should be allowed to touch any dog, and any dog that doesn't like to be touched by kids or might bite their kid if they touch them is bad, because the whole world is just an opportunity for their kid to do whatever it is that they want to do. Like, the amount of times that a parent like has been with their kid and the kid comes over and tries to touch Emma, who hates kids, she's scared of kids, and she might nip at your kid too, but she's just like terrified. She starts shaking because once we were walking through a mall and this little kid smacked her as hard as he possibly could with a stick, and the parent did absolutely nothing. So she has like kid trauma, and plus kids shriek and they don't know how to pet gently, and she's a little dog and they make sudden moves, and little dogs, I think, are often scared of kids because little kids are tortured dogs and little dogs and don't really realize that they're doing it. But, and I'm like, no, your kid, get away from my dog. Like, my dog doesn't exist for your kid. This plane doesn't exist for your kid. The whole world isn't for your kid. I think maybe people who are more kid friendly than me might see things differently, and they'd be like, oh, that's nice. Whereas I'm like, ugh, this kid is so annoying.
Yeah, I wonder what led up to this happening, how the flight crew let this happen. How did they know that this kid was even any good at singing? Because this could have been a lot worse if this kid had a worse.
I mean, I might have enjoyed it more if the kid was really bad. That might have been funnier and more entertaining. This wasn't entertaining. This was a kid who clearly thinks that she's going to be like the next Christina Aguilera. That was a dated reference, but that's because I'm dated. So
it's my least favorite age as well. I think that kids in that preteen age are just not cute at all, and they're not very interesting, and they're so just unfoundedly self-assured that it bothers me. Like,
Yeah.
really, like their self-confidence kind of bothers me because they don't really know anything yet, and that's terrible. But she's epitomizing exactly what why I don't really like that age group very much.
Yeah, I mean, a part of what annoys me is not only just the kid, but like the people who turn it into like, you're a horrible person because you don't like this child singing the most beautiful sound in the world. Like somebody in the comments on Twitter said, if my plane was delayed and I was bored, I'd love to hear a kid sing a little song she likes. You guys are so disgusting and hateful.
Are we?
Why can't we just like be alone and it's already bad enough being stuck on a plane. Just like leave us alone, and we don't need to turn this into an opportunity for a child performance. I don't like child performances. I don't want to watch children do things. I don't want to watch children sing or dance or act. It's annoying.
Why is everything hateful? None of us are saying we hate this kid. Saying you don't want to be subjected to this, or even that you hate being subjected to it, is not hateful to the child. If a child wants to be a performer, like this kid obviously wants to be, and wants to put their stuff out to a big generalized audience, she's going to have to get used to criticism. That is part of being a performer.
That's a good point. This has maybe been a helpful experience for her. I hope she read all of the comments on the internet about her. Joking. I hope she didn't. She'd be traumatized.
Right.
Okay. So speaking of kids, no, I'm joking. We're not speaking of kids at all. We're speaking of Glenn Greenwald, who, of course, there was a video leaked last week. I didn't watch the video on purpose because I didn't want to be grossed out, and I just felt uncomfortable watching it, and I thought, I really need to see this. And then as we were, deciding that we were going to talk about it on the stream, I thought, crap, I should have watched it. And then I didn't even know how to find it at that point, because the first day that it came out, I was seeing all these posts on X, and I was like, I'm not even wading into this. I don't even want to accidentally see the video. But I think at this point it's all been scrubbed from the internet probably. I mean, sure, it's somewhere, and I just didn't really know how, I didn't spend that much time trying to look for it. But I did feel like maybe I should watch it if I'm going to form some opinion about it, because maybe my opinion is not based on the video. My opinion is based on something else. But first, before we talk about it, Mary Lou is gross and did watch. I'm joking.
Watch it.
I think lots of people watch it. You're not the only one, and you're not the gross one. But you're gonna have to describe to us what's in the video, because I haven't seen it, and I don't know who else who's watching has seen it.
People who would like to watch the video can go to masternotions.com, which happens to be the name of the porn company Glenn Greenwald used to own. masternotions.com, but is now a Glenn Greenwald tell-all site that has a lot of information about his previous involvement, which was extensive in the gay porn industry. So that is a little rabbit I went down, and you're welcome if you'd like to lose, some of your life down that rabbit hole. So you can still see the video there. And then, the video is gross, but it's not as explicit as you might be worrying it is. It's pretty tame. I'd say it's like R-rated at most. It's Glenn Greenwald wearing some weird thing. I can't even figure out what it is. People are like, it's a made out outfit, but it's he's wearing some kind of humiliation outfit, which is like a little apron, and I think he's got a thong on, and not quite a bikini. It's like some kind of mesh, like almost feminine thing. And he's on his knees, and there's a Brazilian man in front of him. It's all in Portuguese. It made me wish I knew what Portuguese was. And we don't see the man's face. Glenn's licking the guy's arm, and he's licking his feet. The guy spits on the floor, and Glenn licks it up. I think the man is saying humiliating things to him, and Glenn is repeating those, but that's just the vibe I got because I don't know Portuguese. And then the video shifts to this weird thing where Glenn puts on his reading glasses. He's still wearing his fetish wear. He sits on the bed and he PayPals the man $2,000 American or $10,000 Brazilian. And like half the clip is him PayPaling the money to him. So it's Glenn Greenwald engaging in prostitution, like buying the services of a prostitute to be humiliated because he clearly has a humiliation fetish. So that, when so many right-wingers were like, it's unspeakable, the things he's doing on there, it was not hardcore porn. It's just Glenn Greenwald's on his knees doing gross things, but it's not, there's no genital contact in this video or even exposure. So
Okay.
that's Glenn, that's it. And it wasn't just, it was leaked. It was tweeted from Glenn Greenwald's Twitter account.
Well, he retweeted, I think this is my understanding, is that it was tweeted by a humiliation fetish Twitter account.
Yeah.
That I think maybe Glenn Greenwald knew the account or knew who it was or something like that. And then he retweeted it and then deleted the retweet pretty soon after. But he did retweet it at some point. So that part I found a bit mysterious.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so someone asked, who's Glenn Greenwald? Glenn Greenwald it's a great question. Glenn Greenwald's a man who now is very popular.
He's a very well-known leftist journalist. I would say he's leftist. He's a very good, very important independent journalist who has been very, very brave in his reporting, almost, more so than 99.9% of other journalists.
Yeah, he broke that Edward Snowden story, which was a really important story that did not get enough credence. So that was how he kind of burst on the scene. He originally became a journalist, if you go to masternotions.com, you will find his old writing in the porn industry journals. He's also a lawyer. He's trained as a lawyer. But he has been...
he pushed back against Russiagate. He was one of the only ones, him and Aaron Matei and Matt Taibbi pushed back against Russiagate and were punished enormously for doing so. He's been siding with Julian Assange from the beginning.
I guess Assange dumped the Bradley Manning leaks, and then Greenwald helped promote that as well and was really involved in the defense of Bradley Manning. He's also sex work is work advocate. He's a pro-prostitution voice. He has been pretty critical of J.K. Rowling, thinking she's just a mean person for fighting for women's sex-based rights. And he's been, someone said he backed off on the transgender issue, but I think he's been a big proponent of men's right to legally become women and invade women's space.
He's a huge free speech advocate. I think he founded, or at least was a co-founder of The Intercept, and then left at some point because he had integrity.
And because he wasn't just a leftist. Like he can't be put in a left or right box.
They were censoring him. I think the leaving The Intercept had to do with, they were trying to prevent him from reporting on something to do with Biden. He has a lot of integrity in terms of his journalism, and I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's sort of a typical gay in that he thinks that there's nothing wrong with porn and prostitution, which I think is a lot easier to hold that position if you are gay, because it's like a man on man situation, and man on women porn and prostitution I think actually is a bit different than men on men who are in like a more similar power position, I think. And they see it as a civil liberty. They tend to see it as a civil liberties, free speech issue. They also tend to be pro surrogacy. I assume that Glenn Greenwald is pro surrogacy, although I should double check that. I don't know.
I've seen multiple places, in the past, and as he's defending himself with his current scandal that he's involved in, where he specifically, I did not buy my children. I adopted them from an orphanage.
Okay, interesting.
sentence implies
I take it back then.
a statement that's critical of surrogacy. So I haven't seen any pro-surrogacy speech from him, but
I shouldn't have said that then.
yeah. And he did adopt. He adopted two children from a Brazilian orphanage. So he's a mixed bag. He's also very vehemently critical of Israel, very pro-Palestinian, and he's at least ethnically Jewish. So he's Jewish. So that's
sorry. The internet says that he and his partner David E. Williams welcomed a child through a surrogate in 2014.
I don't think that's true. I think that they adopted their kids, because he only has 2 children, and they were brothers that they adopted from an orphanage. But the internet says, so maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe the internet's wrong. I know, I can see which tweet you're talking about. He's responding to a comment from Matt Walsh where he says that gay adoptive parents are worse than foster care. And then somebody responds in the comments and says, gays don't adopt anymore. They buy babies. And then Glenn Greenwald says, no, huge numbers of gay people adopt. And the vast majority of couples who pay surrogates to carry a child to term are heterosexual couples, not gay couples. And the person responding says, your argument doesn't hold for surrogacy. Yes, it is better for a child without a mother to have a loving home rather than to live in an orphanage, but fail to see how it is better to have children created specifically for men to raise without a mother. And then he says, Glenn Greenwald says, I'm not discussing the surrogacy issue. I think it raises, oh wait, this is not, I thought this was the tweet that you were referencing, but it's not. Maybe I put it somewhere else. I'm not discussing the surrogacy issue. I think it raises all sorts of ethically difficult questions, especially when it comes to economic exploitation and the harm to the women who give birth. For me, those qualms are the same regardless of who pays, but the issue is adoption. So he does seem to sort of understand.
I think he's critical of surrogacy.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think also living in Brazil, he is aware of the enormous number of children living in orphanages and that there is no shortage of children internationally to adopt. And I think that because of his own children coming from that circumstance, he's probably critical of people buying designer kids instead of adopting children who need homes.
Yeah. I don't know why the internet says that, but it sounds like that's not true.
Yeah. I really don't think he's pro surrogacy. He's not, he says at best there he's ambivalent, right? I mean, he says there are moral concerns.
I mean, yeah, I think my point would be that I don't, the fact that I disagree with him on these particular issues, things like prostitution and pornography, for example, and the debate around Israel, Palestine. I would never say I'm like pro-Israel per se, but I'm definitely anti-Hamas. And I think that the Free Palestine people have turned into an extremist, disgusting anti-Semite hate movement. And I think that they're dangerous and, they've proven themselves to be extremely dangerous, and they're taking over our cities in Canada and many cities in America. And I think that it's insane that people keep pretending that this kind of violence and actual hatred is justified in any way.
Right. And also, why are hostages still being held? Okay, just give the hostages back, and then maybe I'll take a more definite side in this.
But I mean, I guess what I want to say is that I don't think this takes away from his journalism or my respect for him as a journalist.
He has a right.
And I don't think his private life deserves to be put out like that on the internet.
Well, I don't think so either, but he did it. And he's a man with a humiliation fetish. I think he did it on purpose. And I think it's been an incredible boost to his career. Look at the number of men coming to his defense. He's more famous than he has ever been. He's the only people really going after him look like just disgusting homophobes like Matt Walsh. His arguments of why this is a problem are just, in my opinion, pretty odious, and they certainly don't reflect the opinion of the majority of Americans. I really believe Glenn did this himself. He honestly is shameless about his sex life. Yeah. There's nothing, like, he's not naked. There is nothing X-rated in this. There's no genitalia. He loses nothing by the release of this. He's gained a lot through the release of it. He's a dude with a humiliation fetish, is probably like getting off on it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I mean, he got so much support from almost everybody important immediately, left, right, and in between.
Right.
You know, the amount of, Charlie Kirk tweeted in his defense. Obviously Matt Taibbi tweeted in his defense. I mean, I think almost everybody that I follow and respect, Batya, tweeted support. And you're right. He did retweet it, so that was strange. I don't know if that was part of the fetish humiliation deal, but I don't think that it actually has hurt him in some way. I think people started speculating about why the video was leaked, and the people who wish to and love this narrative have said, this is what happens when you speak out against Israel, which I don't think is what's going on, or there's certainly no evidence of that anyway.
It must have been the Jews who did this. It's the Jews, right?
It's always the Jews, yeah.
But you know what? If Mossad, if the Israeli intelligence operation wanted to go after Glenn Greenwald with some kind of sex tape, with the current state of AI, they would have gotten something a lot more salacious and universally disgusting than this. Like, this is not Mossad. This is not. And why would they be trying to punish Glenn Greenwald? Like I said, he's gaining from this. So I find the whole thing really interesting. The piece of it that I don't think is being discussed at all are the ethics of a rich white expat buying sex from a Black man in Brazil.
I think what's not being discussed is that I'm offended that he can just send $2,000 like this to a prostitute because it gives him a boner.
Yeah. Well, he wears, women's clothing that I mean, he also is just one more guy who thinks it's humiliating to be a woman,
Well, if you are a man, it is humiliating to be a woman. Like, that's why they call each other pussies and bitches and girls.
I know.
If you're insulting a man, I don't think that's bad.
I know.
I don't want
pussy all the time. He's like, you're a pussy, this is a pussy, that guy's a pussy. And then I started using the term limp dick around him anytime I think someone's ineffectual and like just a useless, agent, like he has no agency. And he's like, that's so mean. Stop saying limp dick. That's so mean.
Sorry, who was saying this?
Well, just one of the many guys who says pussy all the time to indicate like someone who's completely ineffectual and not worthy person. But, it's fine to insult everyone with a slur about women's genitalia, meaning they're weak. Women's genitalia makes us weak. But if I use the term limp dick, that makes me mean. Which I think is an insult we should all take on, because it's actually a much better way of describing. As a midwife, I would say, if you want to call someone weak and ineffectual, limp dick is a much better epithet than pussy.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's all good.
I'm not going to talk.
I'm happy to use all of those insults.
But I just think it's a more elegant phrasing,
I mean,
it's also more accurate.
I call people pussies and bitches, especially men, because it's like, there's so many insults that men can use against women. So I'm going to use whatever insults against a man that I think will work.
I recommend you try out limp dick. It really gets to them.
I don't think if I have or I do. I mean, I mean, I'm open to using any insult, really, if I like how it sounds. I like the way it rolls off my tongue.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So that's not uncommon for men with humiliation fetishes to equate being female and feminized with humiliation. I just, going down the rabbit hole of like, what's going on here? How do I find the video again? Understanding that Glenn Greenwald came out of the porn industry, made a lot of money in the porn industry, ran, a porn company. I think that's worthy of critique. I don't think that it's an ethical industry. I guess if it's different for gay male porn, I'd like to see the studies that it's not that it's actually not harmful to men to be in the gay male porn industry. I'd like to see studies that show like Are those guys healthy? Is it like female porn performers? Are we seeing more kids like Glenn Greenwald's adopted kids? Are these more likely to be neglected, abused children that end up in the gay male porn industry? Is it economically harmful to them in the long run? Is it physically harmful to them in the long run? Is it okay for men to buy each other for sex? What do the statistics say on that, or is it also harmful?
I'm not going to go so far as to say that I think it's okay for men to pay men for sex, because I don't think it's okay to pay anybody for sex. But I also think that a lot of men who do men are, I'm stereotyping, but men are much more promiscuous or desiring to be or eager to be promiscuous than women. Like, for a woman to be penetrated by a man that they don't like or don't want and don't want to have sex with, I think is going to be traumatic on some level. And if a man is getting paid to have sex with another man, I don't know, I kind of think it's a lot more likely that he might enjoy that on some level.
I would need to see the studies. I'd like to talk to males who've exited from the industry before I make, come to any conclusions. So I do think there is a really huge power imbalance between a wealthy, famous white American who can just PayPal someone $2,000 and a prostituted Black man in Brazil.
Yeah. I guess the question would be like, does he deserve to be judged, as a journalist, or, should his integrity or ethics come into question in terms of his journalism because of this video? Because I think that some right-wing commenters were saying that, like, he's a degenerate, so he's a bad person, and therefore he's not trustworthy, or he shouldn't be taken seriously on some level.
No, I don't agree with any of that, and I don't think this invalidates any of the non-porn related journalism that he has done. I just kind of see a whole different narrative here. I would put my $50 on that he did this himself, and that this is a PR move that is incredibly successful for him. And the right-wing voices calling him a degenerate are going to be further marginalized by this, not bolstered by it. And Glenn is gaining friends right and left from it and getting all this support from people who even disagree with him on major issues.
Yeah, this Han Shawnity account, which I like, I don't know who it is though, said something similar. So he said, "I hate that I'm still talking about it, and I hope this is my last tweet on the subject. Glenn Greenwald follows, or at least followed, the account that leaked his gay fetish video and retweeted it within 1 minute of posting. Anyone who still doesn't think it was a false flag psyop is either very, very unintelligent or refuses to see what's right in front of them. The biggest clown in this entire saga is not Greenwald, who appears to have a humiliation fetish and largely achieved the goals of this false flag, but the idiots who ran to defend him and turned him into a hero. I'm looking at you, Meghan Kelly. From some corners of this cesspool, we wouldn't expect any different. Of course, Dave Smith, Candace Owens, Ian Carroll, Pakistani Fatzos, I don't know who these people are, Khaleesi, Suleiman Ahmed, Daryl Cooper, and the rest of these retards would run to his side. People like Meghan Kelly, who know better and still chose to hop on this bandwagon, are the biggest clowns in all of this. I think that's like pretty harsh. I have a lot of respect for Meghan Kelly, and I think that a lot of people were coming to his defense who didn't realize that he'd retweeted it himself and were just saying, I support him and I don't care what he does in his private life, which is fine.
He tweeted it. He retweeted it. So yeah, it's so fascinating. So did Dave Smith speak out against him? Is that what that said?
No, I think he came out in support. I mean, everybody
Yeah,
who
looks like he's
hates
a libertarian,
Israel
yeah.
came out in defense of Glenn Greenwald automatically, but even people who didn't, like Batya and
Yeah.
Meghan Kelly and Charlie Kirk and so on and so forth, came out in his defense because they respect him as a person and a journalist, which
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who he is as a person. I can't say I respect him as a person. I respect a lot of his work, and I don't think he should be canceled. And I, yeah, even if this had been something much more disgusting than what it was, I just still wouldn't think he should be canceled over it unless it was like truly criminal behavior. And apparently, prostitution is legal in Brazil.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me. I suppose
Mm-hmm.
prostitution is pretty big in Brazil.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean, it's I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that prostitution is good in any context, but I mean, I do think it's sort of different when it's man on man. I mean, when I talk about prostitution, I'm never talking about gay prostitution. I'm always talking about men who pay for sex from girls. You know, they're most often minors or, you know, women. And I think that's always unethical and disgusting and abusive and exploitative. Pretty much.
For many years, young, you know, gay teenagers who got kicked out of their house got shunted into prostitution. Homeless gay teenagers. I think a lot of abused boys end up in prostitution. A lot of addicts, male and female, end up in prostitution. In a country like Brazil, which I believe has a really high unemployment rate, there's that aspect of the economy. I believe it's always an exploitive industry.
Yeah.
And gay men like can set up a bathhouse and have sex with each other for free. Like go to the Bear Fest or all these gay festivals where they have sex with hundreds of men in a weekend. Sometimes they don't need to pay for sex because of the subset of gay men who really love engaging in hyper promiscuity. I don't think Glenn Greenwald probably needs to pay for it, but that's part of the fetish for men. Like prostitution is about power. It's about dehumanization. Maybe he can't find someone to humiliate him like that for free. I don't know. But even
I'm sure that he could.
Yeah.
But that's why I sort of think maybe it's not that exploitative. And he doesn't seem like he was doing anything really mean to the prostitute guy.
No, yeah.
I mean, seems like that was a good deal.
2000. Yeah. I really wish someone translate the Portuguese. I don't know. I just need, you know, I have like this bit of unfinished business that I don't know what they were saying.
Right. Brian Knotts on X says, I don't want to cancel him, but so much of this is really about people supporting him because he said things they agree with. That's not true.
Not always true, no.
I think the guy has some mental/addiction issues. Yeah, the other thing people were commenting is that they thought they saw a meth pipe, which I don't give a single shit about. I don't even know if it's true, but I don't care if people do drugs. And I think that people who think, oh, and he's doing drugs, that's bad, are incredibly naive or huge liars because everybody does drugs.
Well, not everyone does meth. There's not a whole lot of casual.
I mean, I don't do meth, but like
there's not very much casual meth.
Meth is huge in the gay scene.
Really? And people just like are
forever. That's like that's their whole thing. No,
really?
Gay guys like to do meth and have sex. That's like a thing, and it has been for years.
I did not see the visible meth or crack pipe. I was looking for it, and I couldn't see it. Okay. It's probably, I'm not, you know, maybe I wasn't paying attention. Maybe I need to take stimulants myself to help with my focus, but I didn't see it in there. And people are really fixating on that. Like Alex Berenson, that was his whole thing of, you're a drug user, Glenn. And when you're gonna, because Alex Berenson is really on this anti-drug, just say no thing, where he wrote that book, Tell Your Kids, about cannabis-induced psychosis and cannabis-induced violence, which actually is something we should be talking about. But the way Alex is talking about it is so dogmatic and rigid that no one's going to be able to hear him.
I've never witnessed anybody who smokes weed do anything bad because they're smoking weed. And I'm not saying that that means that there's not something about it, but like, I don't like weed. I don't smoke weed because I don't like it. I tried for many years because everybody else seemed to like it. So I assumed I was like missing something. And I sort of also just like I like the smell of it, and I sort of like the process of smoking weed. So I would do it. And, you know, all of my boyfriends, for the most part, have been pretty chronic or smoked a lot of weed. But then, you know, the only result was that it made me feel antisocial, unproductive, tired, and hungry. And I was like, I don't really want to spend my evening lying on the couch watching cartoons and eating candy. I would rather do something else. Like, I was just like, I don't like it. And if I'm out, it makes me weird and antisocial when I'm out and wanting to be social. If I'm drunk, it makes me wasted and not be able to walk, which is obviously not enjoyable. Well, obvious to me in any case. So, but I also, I just know so many people and have always known so many people who smoke weed all the time, and they always just seem fine. So I don't really have any negative opinion about weed either.
Well, I think there's a really big difference between smoking weed, like the flower of weed, like old hippie weed, and doing the insanely high THC synthesized products that are available on every corner on every block that I live in, where there's a weed shop on every block, and they're selling products that have nothing in common with the weed I was smoking in college. The THC level is so high. And because it's legal and because it's being marketed as medicine, people are starting to use, daily, all day use of this in adolescence. And we do have quite a few studies that the rate of psychosis is skyrocketing. I and most of my colleagues in primary care have seen cannabis-induced psychosis, which I never saw when I was hanging out smoking weed all the time. It's different now. And these products that are available are not a plant somebody grew and then harvested the flowers and dried them. They are so synthesized and have incredibly high levels of THC, and they are metabolized much differently. They stay in your system for a long time, and people are getting really sick and having mental problems from this high level THC. Alex Barron's book is worth reading. He's an excellent journalist. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and he was right on about COVID. There's also a great Mythic Medicine episode. Mythic Medicine is a great herbalism podcast where a woman whose daughter died of cannabis-induced psychosis, of suicide during a psychotic episode that was cannabis-induced, really talks about her evolution, thinking about cannabis and going from thinking it's completely harmless to understanding it's really harming a lot of teenagers and young adults right now, the way it's turned into this industrial product. So
I mean, I believe it. I mean, my only point was, that I guess, I think that there's a lot of people, and I'm not speaking about you or about Alex Berenson in this comment, but, there's a lot of people who, like Matt Walsh kind of people, like, really uptight right-wing Christian people who do have this, like, drugs are bad. And it's like, no, drugs are not blanket bad. I mean, they're not necessarily good either. Like, I'm not one of those people who thinks that, like, drugs will, like, cure all your problems or whatever, but I just don't think, I think drugs are fine if you want to do drugs and you don't become an addict and you don't let it ruin your life, or it doesn't cause you to abuse other people and steal and things like that, which of course does happen to a lot of people. But most people who do drugs just do drugs sometimes and it's fine, like, I don't know anybody who doesn't or hasn't done drugs.
I think that Glenn Greenwald would be a less productive journalist if he truly had a severe meth problem. Meth really wrecks people when they're addicted to it. They're not getting anything done. And also, they do become, meth-induced psychosis is a much bigger deal than cannabis-induced psychosis. So, I didn't see what looked like a meth pipe or a crack pipe. Maybe someone else could point it out to me. I also didn't see someone said, look, he's got a Palestinian flag on his fetish gear. I didn't see that either. There wasn't anything that looked like that to me.
I saw that too.
Yeah, it didn't look like it to me. I just think the whole thing is the best thing that ever happened to Glenn Greenwald.
I saw a comment from Matt Walsh, I thought, about a meth pipe, but
Yeah, Matt Welsh and Alex Berenson.
And I'm trying to find it, and now it seems like I've lost it again. Crap. I mean, one of the questions, I think, we can get back to the meth situation, but one of the questions, I think, was, and Milo says, I'm sorry, but there absolutely should be embarrassment and regret. And I don't know why everyone with a blue check is saying otherwise. Like this question of like, no shame. I don't feel any shame. Nobody should feel any shame about sex stuff that they do in their private life. And then JD in the comments says, it's a red flag when people espouse the view that there aren't norms in sexuality. And, you know, it doesn't matter because it's not. My opinion about Glenn Greenwald's journalism isn't going to change because he has fetishes. But I will say that I think that there should be norms when it comes to sexuality, and there should be some shame when it comes to sexuality. And I don't believe in this anything goes thing just because it comes to sex. And I think that, you know, like men who need a bunch of bells and whistles or outfits or special scenarios or, you know, whatever in order to get off are weird and flawed, and people should be able to enjoy sex for sex because sex is great. And yeah, I find it really strange when people need all this other stuff to get off. Like, I think that's really weird, and that's a problem, and it shouldn't be normalized.
Right.
Or like celebrated, like, oh, that means that you're like sexually liberated because you need like this, you need to be wearing an outfit and you need somebody to spit on you. And like, it's like, what? Like, don't you just like, isn't this enjoyable to have sex with somebody? Have an orgasm? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, I don't think there's anything in that Glenn Greenwald tape that is more extreme than what we're all about to witness in our hometown pride parades that are coming this month, where it's all just paraphilic hypersexuality on display. There will be countless examples of men in leather assless chaps holding whips in one hand and a leash in the other, and on the end of the leash is a man in a dog outfit on his knees, you know, walking on all fours. We're gonna be subjected to that culturally all month in every town in this country. And yeah, it's like, I want to have a conversation about that. This, you know, the exhibitionism, the forcing me to watch. It's no longer consenting adults in the privacy of their own home. It's coming down Main Street. And I do want to talk about that. Why am I being subjected to that? They're like, well, you can stay home if you don't like it, but I have to hide in my house if I don't want to see people in their fetish gear.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, the bringing the hyper normalization of fetishes in this modern era, I think, is really bad. And and you shouldn't be bringing your sex life into the public sphere in that way at all. Sorry, go ahead.
It will, you know, continuing to push this past the comfort zones of the majority is going to create a horrific backlash where we will see a return to old school, not just homophobia, but social sanctioning against certain sexual behaviors. It's just the way the pendulum swings. You can't just, you know, campaign for years saying you just want to be normal middle-class people who can get married, and then as soon as you get that, have your assless chat parade and your puppy play in the streets.
You're like, we're just kidding. We want to take our dicks out in public and fuck each other on the beach and at this public park.
Exactly. Right.
Wait.
Wait, I thought you all wanted to get married.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like that. Yeah. And it's not, I don't want to just pin this on the gay community. Hypersexuality is a problem in Hollywood with, with heterosexual imagery, especially with young women. There's so much pornification of the culture going on. It's not just in the gay community.
Yeah, for sure. And third wave feminism played a huge role in normalizing kink and BDSM and fetishes and prostitution and pornography. This is what Matt Walsh said. Greenwald was asked specifically about the apparent meth pipe. So I don't know that anybody has, I don't know, he's just not saying he saw it, but he probably didn't watch the video, I guess. In the video, and he didn't deny it. Instead, he said he's proud of his personal life. How can anyone defend this? There are 3 children in that home. Does anyone really think that a home with hard drug use and male prostitution is an appropriate or safe place for children? Really? Yeah, so I guess somebody had tweeted, I'm trying so hard to see past that video, but the demonic eyes and meth pipe really bother me more than sexual deviance. People who don't do drugs always think they're seeing drug paraphernalia in places because they don't actually know what drug paraphernalia looks like. So I'm not going to take these people very seriously. These people also are like, clearly this person's on cocaine. And I'm like, clearly this person is not on cocaine. You don't know what that looks like. And then says, would love to hear some acknowledgement of your use of this dangerous brain-altering drug or why that meth pipe was present if not used. The way crack/meth, 2 different drugs, impacts the brain can absolutely impact your journalism/professional life. And as a subscriber, I want to know if it is or not. And Greenwald responds and says, the point I've made from the start is that the moral and ethical code I believe in for my own life is one I am satisfied I am fulfilling the fruits of my personal and professional life, and the values they represent speak for themselves. I'm quite proud of them and feel no obligation to confine myself to the various moral codes of others to profess to believe when it comes to private behavior. So he doesn't deny the meth pipe thing. I don't know that necessarily
that's
means
interesting.
that there is one there, but I mean, I'm sure Glenn Green, I wouldn't be surprised if he'd done meth or does meth and has sex with male prostitutes like a lot of gay men do. Like, it really is a very common thing in like the club scene for gay men to go out and do meth and have sex with each other and have sex parties and things like that. But I mean, I always am like, why don't you say any of these things about Adderall? Because Adderall is the same as meth, essentially, perhaps less dangerous if you're not buying it on the street.
Yeah, it's less likely to be horribly contaminated through the home cooking processes. But yeah, I mean, essentially, they're very similar chemicals in the brain if it's pure methamphetamine. Yeah, I mean, Matt Walsh, of course he's gonna have a take that we're not resonating with. I just really think it's interesting that he's taking this opportunity to put his homophobia on display. But the drug use part of it, maybe Glenn should address that. Maybe he's not denying it. He's not acknowledging it. Is it important? I care less about that than I do about, I really think that he's got paraphilias that have taken over his life, and that he tweeted this himself, and that, he's not ashamed of that. He's not ashamed of it. And it's actually politically expedient, and it's helping him that he did this.
Yeah. I mean, somebody named Stephanie Tyler, this tweet went very far, and I saw other people tweeting, similar responses, I would say, like having similar commentary. So she says, I'm so torn over this Glenn Greenwald stuff. On one hand, I genuinely believe in personal liberty and privacy. Consenting adults should be able to do whatever they want, period. No victim, case closed. But on the other hand, something in me short circuits when I see the behavior that unhinged when I see behavior that unhinged and try to pretend it has zero bearing on someone's mental model and worldview. Like, I want to believe that you can be a brilliant, high-functioning journalist and also get filmed licking another man's feet while wearing a maid costume. But somewhere deep in my gut, I just don't buy it, not because I care about the kink itself, but because it suggests a way of relating to the world that feels off. Because what you do in private still reveals what you believe about control, hierarchy, selfhood, reality. And that belief system just doesn't disappear when you sit down to do journalist things. The question isn't, is this morally wrong? It is, how does a mind justify this to itself? And what else might that same logic excuse? It's not about kink shaming. It's about pattern recognition, because at a certain point, the architecture of a person's private compulsions has to leak into how they process truth, power, boundaries, meaning when someone's private behavior looks like a direct collision with their public values, I start to question the coordinates, and for some reason, no one really wants to say that out loud, but I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if I buy that. We all do weird things when we're in sexual situations and say weird things. And like, I don't know. I feel like when I was more into feminism, I would be like, I don't know, maybe I should get away from this, because sometimes like there's things that I say or do in the bedroom that don't parse with my politics. And I think that's fine. And imagine trying to be a feminist in bed all the time, like gross. But I mean, I'm not into a bunch of weird stuff. I'm not going into any details. But like,
Glenn Greenwald is looking directly at the camera during this whole thing. It's pretty clear that it looks to me like the man he's buying the sexual acts from is filming him as part of the humiliation fetish. And Greenwald knows it's being filmed because he's looking right at the camera the whole time. I think, yeah, there's some questions about his discernment going on here. Do he should be canceled for it? No. But I do think buying sex is wrong. I think it's wrong across sexualities. I don't think people should buy other humans for sex. And I think being a John is gross. And I think the dynamics of, again, a rich, relatively powerful white expat buying sex from a much younger Black Brazilian man is questionable. And I would like the conversation to pivot to that. I hear that, you feel differently about gay male prostitution. I'm not sure I agree. I think that there's probably a good chance that a lot of the young gay men in prostitution in Brazil come from an abusive background, come from sexual abuse.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good point, actually, because I think that in poor countries, boys are prostituted and abused by adult men a lot, and it's really abusive and exploitative and traumatic. I guess I was thinking about 2 adult gay men who were engaging in some sort of prostitution deal, but you're right that happens, and it's really sad and awful, actually.
Well, and my understanding is that it's a 19-year-old prostitute, and that in many places on masternotions.com, you can see lots of Glenn's history, and he's into barely legal. That's his deal, is barely legal. So teenage prostitutes, over 18, but a guy who's almost 60, who's rich and powerful, and I don't there's so much baggage around this, but who is a white man buying a Black man, a barely legal teenage Black man. I find the power dynamics unsavory. I think buying sex is gross. I think it should be shamed. I think the Nordic model should apply regardless of the sex of the person.
Yeah, I'm not arguing in favor of gay men buying gay sex. I'm just saying that I think my view of it is different than men who pay women and girls, or child, boys, like anybody underage is different than, 2 adult gay men. I think that the dynamic is perhaps different. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not in that situation.
Yeah.
I'm wrong. I just think, mostly what I'm saying is men are gross, perverted whores. Yeah. And so this is just sort of what I expect of them to be doing. And I assume that they kind of are less harmed by it than when men do this to women or children.
Yeah. How It is interesting thinking like how it might be different if this were a bisexual man married to a woman and they had adoptive children, and then we found out the guy had hired a gay prostitute to film him in his humiliation fetish, and then it got leaked. I
He'd be
think
cheating, first of all.
no, what if they were poly?
I mean, he's putting her at risk of STIs.
Well, so is Glenn. I mean, so pretty much is any man who's buying sex.
Was he in a relationship with somebody, or is he
His
single now, right? Because his husband died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly from complications of gay sex. I mean, he died of a rectal infection.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are all questions. These are things we're not allowed to talk about. Okay. I want to backtrack and say, I don't think Glenn Greenwald should be canceled. I think he has done good journalism. He likely will continue to do so. I think this opens up an opportunity to discuss certain things that we're normalizing that maybe we shouldn't be normalizing.
Yeah.
About the harms of prostitution, and to talk about
gay sex,
and male paraphilias, and male paraphilia exhibition month, aka Pride, that we're all enduring now.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective. I think in general, people's private lives should be private, and that people shouldn't start trying to judge people on the kind of sex they have in their personal lives and the kind of drugs that they do in their personal lives. Because if everybody wants to open up all their texts and photos and their sex life to the entire world for judgment, I mean, there's going to be something in there.
So, I'm going to judge everyone.
Careful what you're wishing for.
Yeah, if you buy sex, I'm going to judge you. I mean, it's gross.
Yeah, I do too. But I think that's not a private behavior, really. That's not. I don't know. Like, I think the people pretend that pornography is a private behavior, but it's not. Exactly. It's an industry. Right. It's an industry. That's like. First of all, there are other people that you're involving. This is a public thing. They made a video. It's being sold on the internet. Somebody's profiting. Like, this is a business. These are Pornhub is a company, like a multi-billion-dollar company. And prostitution, likewise, is a massive multi-billion-dollar global industry, which includes a lot of trafficking. And, it's just, I don't know if you can qualify paying for sex as just a personal, private behavior.
Right.
Like, it's not about your private relationship or your marriage. That is private and personal. Like, this is a stranger that you don't know that you're paying to have sex with you, who probably works for a pimp or a brothel or an escort agency. And like,
nobody has to buy sex. Like, I think that it's wrong. Again, I'm a huge proponent of the Nordic model. I think there are plenty of people who are forced or coerced into selling sex, and they can be punished for that. But anyone who's pimping or purchasing sex should be minimum shamed. I think punished. I think it should be illegal. I do not think it should be illegal to buy other humans for sex.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Terrible. Yeah.
And one of the defenses was, he's not doing anything illegal because prostitution is legal in Brazil. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make a difference to me, because the fact that people go to countries where prostitution is legal so that they can pay for sex because they can't do it maybe in their own country or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't make me feel any better, because I think that legalized prostitution is wrong and horrific. And again, most of those, I'm talking about women again, are trafficked.
I think a lot of the men are not in great situations either. I really do. I think that I would like to talk to men who are critical of that industry and see if there are men who are exited from that industry to see. But I have a feeling it's probably horrible. You imagine like a bunch of wealthy men like Glenn Greenwald, just buying you for sex. Like, I just don't think it's probably good for them. The power dynamic is always terrible.
Or maybe they're having a really fun gay sex party.
Yeah, that's
sort of what I'm picturing.
I don't think it's true. I don't think there needs to be money involved for that. Unless
I
it's
mean,
like
what troubles me is the minors and the underage aspect,
Yeah.
and then the fact that I know, this is true of women, so this might be
Yeah.
true of men also, that, most women in prostitution got into it when they were underage, which means, this isn't
Yeah.
all about just like two consenting adults. And it's like, well, it wasn't a year ago about two consenting adults, but now it's all above board. It wasn't, when
Yeah.
she got into this because somebody trafficked her and molested her,
Yeah.
abused her, coerced her when she was 14 or 15 years old, or, now she's 18 or 19. So it's all good.
Two consenting adults, money isn't being exchanged. I don't think money can buy sexual consent.
No.
So
But
that
I
to
know that
me,
gay men have a very different culture than
but
the rest of us do.
I know, and there are issues with that, and there's a lot of pathology in that community, and there's a lot of disease transmission that comes from unsafe sex practices. There's a huge risk of being a gay male prostitute, and it's not a less risky business for them than it is for a woman. It is in a sense they're less likely to. They're not definitely going to be physically weaker than the person who's buying them for sex. So they're probably less likely to be strangled to death or murdered just because they can put up a fairer fight against a John. So in terms of murder, it might be less risky for them, but in terms of diseases and rectal injuries and throat injuries and just having the brutality inflicted upon their bodies, I doubt it's that much better than it is for women.
I'm sure there's lots and lots and lots of horrific stories. But I do think that it is different for adult gay men doing adult gay things versus, a man who's paying a woman for sex in any context.
Yeah, But that's the piece of I'm not going to let him off the hook. I'm not, just because they're gay, I'm not going to pretend that money can buy consent. And that is what I keep coming back to is Glenn Greenwald's an unrepentant John. And I have an issue with that. I think it's gross. Do I think he should be canceled? No. Do I think it negates the good work he's done in journalism? No. But it's interesting that that's who he is, and that's the hill he was willing to not die on, like to be venerated upon.
I mean, he dealt with it in a really good way.
He released the video. He did this.
And then he was like, I'm not ashamed. I'm moving on with my work. Bye.
Obviously not ashamed. You tweeted it. You did it. You allowed yourself to be filmed. Clearly you're unrepentant and unashamed. And all right, that's fine. But
I mean, that's how, it's a good way to respond. And then, he's not at risk of being canceled. He's gotten tons of support. And I actually think that's a good thing because, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there would have been mass efforts to cancel him. And now that stuff kind of doesn't really work. Like, and cancel culture just does not have the hold that it did in 2014 or whatever.
Also, literally nobody cares if you're gay anymore.
No.
And who cares what your fetishes are and your perversions and your kinks or whatever we're calling them now. Like we're so beyond that. We are such a pornified, perverted, hypersexual society that it's not a big deal. And again, what was released was pretty tame. I thought it was kind of gross, but it wasn't. I was worried that it could be very hardcore gay sex, which I really am not.
Yeah, well, that's what I was worried about. I was like, this is why I don't watch pornography, because these images are like burned into my brain and I don't want them there.
No, it's gross, but half of the video is him putting on his dorky glasses and still and going to his laptop on the bed, still wearing his fetish gear and PayPaling money to the guy. Like that's half of it.
So weird.
I know. Anyway, that's what Glenn Greenwald.
Well, good convo. The last thing on our list is whether or not we don't even have to discuss this. Whether or not there should be an option for women to sort by height on Tinder.
Oh God, I don't even care.
I don't think I care anymore either. The
men are
reason that it
upset about
became
that.
controversy is because men always respond by saying that, well, then I should be able to sort by weight. And it's like, yeah, but you're
Right.
not in the power position here because the women are choosing you. So you don't get to do anything. You can be
Yeah.
mad about that all you want. It's always these men who are like, oh, well, then I should be able to discriminate. It's like, you're not discriminating. You don't
Yeah.
get to discriminate. You're not in a position to discriminate. These women are deciding who they want to date. I don't think anybody should be on Tinder or you'd be using dating apps or dating online. I think that it's toxic and gross
exactly.
and a
That's
huge waste of time and is not going to get you anywhere if you're genuinely interested in meeting somebody. But, you know, sure, if a woman wants to sort by height, I mean, everybody, like, this is the problem with dating apps, is that if you meet somebody in real life, you're attracted to them. And it's not going to be based necessarily, like, obviously it's like, yeah, I'm not attracted to fat people, or I'm probably not going to be attracted to a guy who's shorter than me, but that would be something that I would discern in real life. And, I've dated a lot of really, really tall guys. Like when I was younger, I used to date basketball players. I dated a guy who was like 6'4", dated a guy who was 6'10", but it's not like I refuse, if a man's like sort of closer to me in height and I really like him, I'm not going to not be into him. That's not how attraction works. And it's like, do you not understand that this is a problem of dating apps and a problem of you just not being out in the world and talking to other people like human beings and meeting people in a normal way and becoming attracted to people and going on a date with somebody you've already had a conversation with and there already is an attraction, instead of treating like you're, swipe, like,
yeah.
it's the whole thing is just maddening. But yeah, then it's these guys pretending like they have standards or get to have standards when they're just at home in their basements playing video games.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I would be happy if these things if Tinder just didn't exist, though I guess a lot of people would disagree with me, but I don't think it's been good for society. So I don't really care if there's a height filter or not.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, well, we figured everything out once again.
We did. We got it all figured out.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We are here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. Do like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. You can do that right now by just clicking the subscribe button. And Mary Lou is on Substack at Mary Lou Singleton. Her website is enchantedfamilymedicine.com. She's on X at ML_Singleton. You can buy my gay and retarded t-shirt by going to meganmurphy.ca and clicking the shop tab. That's also my Substack, or you can just search Meghan Murphy on Substack. And please become a paid subscriber. It's only $5 a month and it helps support my work because I am not funded by the Russians or the far right or the CCP or the government. It's just me. So thanks. I appreciate it. I don't know. That's all I can think of. Can you think of anything else?
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll find something fascinating to talk about next week.
Lots of fascinating things. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mary Lou.
Thanks, Megan.
Good night.
See you next week.